My life changed the day that I hanged myself. There wasn't any one reason I decided to do it. It was just shit piled on top of more shit on top of more shit. I felt alone, afraid, empty. My life was going to shit, and I felt it was not in my control to stop it. There are certain levels of stress that supersedes what human beings are capable of handling, and I had reached that point 10 times over. I was in several classes, but underperforming in each. I held a research position that would look wonderful for my applications to grad school, but I did not feel respected at all. My time felt like a commodity that was everyone's but my own, and there was nothing that I could do to fix it. The day that I finally decided to do it was the day that my ex-girlfriend had texted me. We had broken up after a long break, and she had texted me looking for some closure as to how our relationship had ended. She was angry and upset at me. I can't say that I blame her. I had always valued my grades above love, and then I gotten upset when I felt alone. What a freaking hypocrite I am. I always needed external approval about how I looked, how smart I was, how talented I was, and she felt that she was never enough for me. Honestly, she brought up some really good points. She was completely right. And that was the tipping point. I had thought for a couple of years how I would go through with it. Guns were too messy, and I lived in a state where they weren't exactly accessible. I have a low pain tolerance, so slitting my wrist was certainly off the table. Hanging was perfect. It was ceremonial, ritualistic, and it felt like the right way to do it. I did not leave a note. That's too cliché. When I got home from work, I downed a couple of shots of vodka, grabbed some rope from the garage, and I tied it into a noose. I threw it over my head, tossed it to my overhead light, got on my desk chair, and I jumped. The last thing I remember before I was consumed by the void was the cracking of my hyoid. The darkness soon subsided. Before I had time to curse myself for failing at yet another thing in life, I realized that I was no longer in my room. The darkness was gone, and my room had dissipated. In its place was an indescribable luminescence, coming not from a single source but from every direction. The light was accompanied by the strongest heat that I had ever experienced. I attempted to shut my eyes, but I realized that I couldn't. I felt around my eyes. I had no eyelids. My eyes were permanently naked to the outside world. Where was I? Was this? Before I had a chance to answer, a voice emerged from the light. This is not hell. Hell does not exist. Well, at least not as you humans conceive of it. I attempted to respond. As I attempted to move my lips, I realized that I had no mouth. It was not that my lips had been sewn shut. It's not that I can no longer move my lips. It is as though the skin of my face grew over where my mouth once was. You have a lot of questions, I'm sure. Introductions are a polite way to go about this, so let me begin. I am what you understand as the devil. No. For all intents and purposes, I truly was in hell. At that moment, I was somewhat relieved that I could not see him. The voice boomed again. I can see what you're thinking. I do not have a pitchfork or red horns or any of the sort. Humanity, while creative, understands little of me and my role. I am not a fallen angel. I do not punish the wicked. I am not supernatural. I am merely a product of mankind and its inability to correct its own injustices. I was, of course, still confused. The voice continued. There is a lot to explain, and you are not capable of understanding most of it. That is all right. I will not waste your time or mine talking to you about it. What is more pressing to me now is, What will happen to you? I am by no means the arbiter of your eternal fate, but rather I am meant to facilitate the transition between life and, well. His voice, although booming and omnipresent, trailed off. The world around me began to rise above and I found myself immobile. As I looked down, I realized that the world was stationary, but that it was sinking onto the cold and black, yet somehow incandescent floor. The solid material molded around my feet and legs until it reached my torso, and then my chest, and then my head. The material oozed and covered my eyes, and then it oozed inwards, filling my insides. I could not breathe. I was suffocating, but I could not die. I involuntarily tried to breathe in through my nose, but I only inhaled the molded material that engulfed my being. Then, in what felt like both a moment and an eternity, I was in a room that I was unable to recognize. I attempted to move around, only to realize that I was still immobilized. The floor was made of the same material that I had just been sunk into. I looked around and I saw little of a note. It looked quite like a standard room. A computer monitor was set up on a desk, and a television set was mounted on the wall. On the desk was a picture of a man and his son and his daughter, smiling at an amusement park. I looked at it intensely for a few moments. They looked so happy. My interest in the room quickly vanished as the door slammed behind me. A man who must have been in his early 30s strolled in, sobbing and holding his laptop. I was unable to fully see what he had been reading, but it appeared to be an email from his ex-wife. And then in a low, guttural tone, he said, "She can take the kids, but I can take something from her." He stopped sobbing. He swiftly searched under his bed and he pulled out a handgun. I realized then what he was going to do. As I did, he pulled the gun to his temple. He quivered and muttered, "God forgive me." And as I attempted to close my eyes, he pulled the trigger. Blood and brain matter covered his posters. His body, no longer under his control, convulsed several times from the impact of the bullet, before slouching over and adopting an uncomfortable and strenuous posture. I had attempted to scream, but no noise came out. Instead, I felt tears run down my face. As I wiped them off with my hands, I realized they were made of the same material as the floor. My tears solidified on my hands and it stuck to them. As I looked back at the corpse of the man, I realized that he had begun to ascend. Or rather, I had begun to sink again. I suffocated once more. I am still rather unsure of how long it was. I found myself in a rather luxurious bathroom. A woman was taking a warm bath, writing in a journal with serious intent. I looked at the foggy mirror and I realized that I made no reflection. I did not exist. I looked back to the bath. Although she could not see me, I felt compelled to look away. But there was little room to move. I curiously looked at the note and I decided to read it over. "Dear Max, I am so sorry that things had to end like this. I did not know the best way to end my own life, but I could not bear to see you with another woman. What we had was certainly special, unique, different, and you threw it away. I hope she makes you happy. I hope." I stopped reading. I realized what she was going to do. She finished her note and calmly reached for the edge of the bathtub to grab a razor. Without hesitation, she brought the razor to her wrist and cut deep. She winced at the pain before closing her eyes and letting the sound of running water be the last sound that she ever heard. Would I have to experience eternity, witnessing the final moments of those who could no longer bear the weight of existence? Would I always witness the final moments of those who were like me? As she bled out, I realized the blood was far opaquer than it should have been. It was the same material as the floor. It went from a trickle to a faucet to a waterfall, and eventually, it engulfed the entirety of the room. The transition was immediate this time. I was met with the same brightness that I had initially encountered after my death, and the voice spoke again. I can sense what your consciousness houses. You know these people are suffering. You know they experience pain, torment, anguish. You know they have mental afflictions that they cannot control. You do not envy them. You wish you could speak to them, comfort them, tell them that their problems always had solutions. It was right. I felt nothing but sorrow, nothing but pain for those who are unable to help themselves. Do you not see the hypocrisy of your own actions? Your sin is not that you have become overwhelmed and have felt lonely. Your sin is not your depression. Your sin is not that you have made mistakes, nor that you have hurt others. Nor is your sin that you felt that ending your own life was the only way to alleviate your suffering and the suffering of those around you. It was at this moment that I realized that all of those issues, my research job, my ex, my feelings of hopelessness, they were all impermanent. For better and for worse, nothing will trouble me forever. Not like this would. Your sin is that you have not treated yourself as you would treat others. Your sin is in your ability to love and respect yourself as you love others. You have sinned, first and foremost, against yourself. As the voice finished, I began to choke. The black material oozed out of the few holes I had left in my face. It spewed out of my nostrils, from behind my eyes, from my ears, from everywhere. Soon it began to overcome the light that blinded me until it consumed all the empty space around me. And then, there was nothing. I woke up in my room. The rope had snapped and my neck was intact. Glass from the light above me surrounded where I had fallen. I glanced around, and everything else was where I left it. My housemate knocked on my door and asked if everything was alright. For the first time in a long time, I answered that it was. I was still depressed, and I still am. I still felt inadequate, stupid, inferior. I still make mistakes. I still hurt others. I still cry and feel hopeless. The devil can't cure depression. But for the first time in my life, I realized that I was worth worrying about, that I was worth caring about, that I was like everyone else. Not lesser, not greater. I am human, and to live is to grow. I was given a second chance, and I know that while I don't deserve it over anyone else, I do deserve it as much as anyone else. So I won't waste it. After all, my life began the day that I hanged myself.